This is a Lego cape, but it didn't always look like this. The OG cape from 1984 looked more like this. They were commonly included in Knight's Castle set. It's simply hard plastic on the back of the minifigure. I've had this piece for many years, but I never thought it was a cape because it doesn't really look like a cape. And the only way you'd know it's a cape is if you'd had prior knowledge or had the minifigures as a kid. This is just a really terrible cape. I mean, how is a minifigure supposed to sit on a chair with this? The cape doesn't look as epic since you can't see the cape from the front side. Then, in 1993, they made the first cloth cape. This one was very narrow, similar to the Mandalorian capes. The capes were made of the same material used on the pirate sails. It only had one hole to put around the minifigure's neck, which resulted in many people breaking the cape. That's why when they remade this piece in 2022, they gave it 2 holes. In 1995, they also made a red version for this king. The weird thing is, the plastic one was still being used alongside the paper one until 1998. That's when in 1999, the Star Wars minifigures introduced modern capes with 2 holes, which was stronger than one. These capes sometimes had patterns on them, like on the Harry Potter minifigures, and some of them had 2 different colors, one on the inside and on the outside. This style of cape was very common on the Lando minifigures. The style of cape would transfer to waist capes and pauldrons since they were easy to fold. The issue was the material would crumple easily if you played a lot with your minifigures. Another downside is that over time the capes fray, which makes them more ugly, and dust would easily get onto it. So, in 2017, the Batman movie introduced cloth capes. They also introduced these shiny yellow capes, but these ones crumple, so they're not used as much. They did create cloth capes before this in 2009 for Asajj Ventress, but it was only for this one minifigure. The cloth capes don't crumple as much, and they don't get as much dust on them. This is great since the minifigures can now sit in chairs without their capes crumpling. The cape is very thick and it flows up, which doesn't look as good as the paper ones. The paper ones are still used for pauldrons and waist capes since they look better when they're folded over multiple times. But recently, LEGO has been cutting down on capes entirely and just printing them on. This is especially common on waist capes and sometimes other capes. Instead, they're printing them on, and they're not fully wrapping around the legs, which looks really awkward. The reason why they're printing them is because the paper ones would crumple. I mean, the printed ones just look terrible. If you're gonna do a waist cape, at least print all around the leg, or do a dual molded leg. And it's not like they can't do it. They've already done it on this Harley Quinn minifigure from the Arkham Asylum, and it looks beautiful. Now, some capes still have one hole, like on the Season 11 Master Wu minifigure. This is probably because the material is too thick to be double layered around the neck. It also does something similar with ponchos, but the hole is much larger, meaning you have to be very careful not to break the material. This cape also has a soft felt material on the outside, which makes the poncho thicker. This material should have been used for the armor minifigure, but of course they printed it on. So I made my own with Sharpie. In the custom community, they like to put capes for almost everything, including trench coats, armor pouches on clone troopers, but I think that's a little bit too much. I think that a LEGO minifigure should have a balance between cloth and printed pieces. Now, before cloth or printed capes, there were hard plastic capes that we saw, and hard plastic waist capes. These were introduced with the Star Wars clone commanders. They just immobilized the minifigure's legs, which wouldn't allow them to sit down or walk. In 2021, LEGO also made the Doctor Strange minifigure, which had a rubber cape. He used to have a cloth cape, but they realized that the cloth didn't rest the same way that it did in the movies. That's why they changed it to rubber. Even though the LEGO community is divided on the printed capes and the cloth capes, at least we can all agree that the plastic capes were the absolute worst. Or is it? You see, just this year, LEGO released a special cape in the Devour Showdown set. The first Minecraft cape. I thought it would be a rectangle cloth cape so that it can flow like in the game when you run, but LEGO opted for a hard plastic one similar to the OG cape. This one doesn't have a print, but I hope to see a printed one in the future. However, there's still an issue with this cape. Since it's hard plastic, you won't be able to equip a chest plate, which is unfortunate. So maybe it's better that these capes too become cloth.